What if I told you that deep in the jungles of Central America, hidden beneath centuries of vines and whispers of forgotten legends, stand stone giants so precisely crafted they defy the limits of ancient engineering? The Mayan pyramids aren't just ruins, they're time capsules, holding secrets so perplexing that even today's brightest minds struggle to unravel them. Imagine walking through those towering corridors where every step echoes with the footsteps of a civilization that vanished into thin air, leaving behind monuments so advanced they seem almost otherworldly. This isn't just history, it's a mystery wrapped in limestone, waiting for us to peel back its layers. For over 1,000 years, the Mayans ruled their empire with brilliance and ingenuity, building cities that soared above the jungle canopy. But here's the thing, their pyramids weren't just tombs or temples, they were cosmic calculators aligning perfectly with the stars, tracking time with eerie precision, and hiding clues about a knowledge so deep it still leaves scientists speechless. How did a civilization without modern tools achieve such mathematical perfection? Why do some of their structures resonate with sacred frequencies found in nature? And what lost wisdom might still be buried beneath those weathered stones? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. From pyramids that act as giant sound amplifiers to hidden chambers revealing gruesome rituals, these ancient wonders hold stories that blur the line between myth and reality. So buckle up, because by the end of this journey, you'll see these monuments not as crumbling relics of the past, but as living puzzles begging to be solved. The deeper we dig, the stranger it gets, and trust me, you won't believe what's waiting beneath the surface. When we think of towering pyramids, Egypt usually steals the spotlight, but the truth might just rewrite history. Hidden beneath the dense jungle canopy of Guatemala lies a colossus that dwarfs even the Great Pyramid of Giza in sheer volume. Meet La Danta, the crown jewel of El Mirador, a lost city swallowed by time. This staggering structure rises 72 meters high, with a base so massive it could swallow 30 football fields whole. Yet, unlike its Egyptian counterpart, La Danta remains shrouded in obscurity, its name barely whispered outside archaeological circles. So why hasn't this architectural marvel captured the world's attention? For starters, nature has been its greatest rival. The jungle doesn't surrender its secrets easily. Thick vines and towering trees have camouflaged La Danta for centuries, making it nearly invisible until modern LiDAR technology peeled back the green veil. Then there's the sheer isolation. Getting to El Mirador isn't just a hike. It's a multi-day trek through treacherous terrain where howler monkeys outnumber tourists. But perhaps the most haunting reason, the Maya themselves. Unlike Egypt's pyramids built as eternal tombs for pharaohs, La Danta was part of a living city, a hub of politics and power that vanished almost overnight. What's truly mind-bending isn't just its size, it's the precision. Without metal tools or wheels, the Maya moved millions of limestone blocks, stacking them with such ingenuity that the pyramid's core resembles a honeycomb, light yet unshakable. And here's the kicker, every angle, every terrace aligns with celestial events. During equinoxes, shadows slither down its steps like serpents, a deliberate nod to their gods. This wasn't just a building, it was a cosmic clock, a declaration of human ambition carved into the earth. Yet for all its grandeur, La Danta raises more questions than answers. Why did the Maya invest so much in a city so remote? Was it a defensive stronghold, a sacred sanctuary, or something we've yet to decipher? One thing's certain. While Egypt's pyramids bask in glory, La Danta waits patiently, its full story still buried beneath roots and time. And that's just the beginning, because beyond this jungle giant, the Maya left even stranger puzzles in stone. Imagine constructing a skyscraper with nothing but rocks and sticks. That's essentially what the Maya accomplished, carving, lifting, and fitting millions of limestone blocks into pyramids that still stand today, all without a single metal chisel or wheel. Their tools sharpened volcanic glass, hardened stone axes, and ropes woven from jungle fibers. It sounds impossible, yet the proof is right there in the towering steps of Decode and the flawless angles of Palenque. The secret lay in their mastery of materials. Obsidian, a volcanic glass sharper than modern steel, became their scalpel capable of slicing through limestone with astonishing precision. Archaeologists have found blades so meticulously crafted they could rival surgical instruments, each one painstakingly knapped by hand. For heavier work, they used basalt hammers, pounding stones into shape through brute force and patience. But here's the real marvel: they didn't just hack at rock. They understood grain and fracture points, exploiting natural weaknesses to split boulders with strategic strikes, almost like ancient stone whisperers. Then came the puzzle of movement. Without wheels or beasts of burden, how did multi-ton blocks travel miles from quarries to construction sites? The answer hides in the jungle itself. Tree sap became glue, woven vines transformed into pulleys and log rollers, slick with mud created makeshift conveyor belts. Teams hauled stones using sheer manpower, likely synchronized by rhythmic chants or drumbeats to maintain momentum. Some theories even suggest they leveraged water channels during rainy seasons, floating stones on rafts through temporary canals. But precision, that's where the Maya left modern engineers speechless. Their corners meet at perfect 90-degree angles, and staircases align with celestial events down to the minute. They used simple plumb bobs, weighted strings, to ensure vertical accuracy, and leveled foundations using water-filled trenches as natural spirit levels. Even more baffling, their mortar recipe. By mixing burnt limestone with tree resin, they created a glue so strong it fossilized over centuries, binding blocks tighter than some modern concrete. What's truly humbling isn't just their skill, it's their adaptability. When resources ran low, they recycled. Collapsed temples became filler for new ones, hidden layers holding clues to earlier designs. This wasn't just construction, it was a dialogue with time itself, and perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all, how a civilization without metal could think in millennia, building not for their lifetime but for eternity. Yet for all we've pieced together, one question lingers. How did they maintain such uniformity across hundreds of miles with no blueprints or standard units? The answer might lie in the stars, using celestial patterns as their ultimate measuring tape, turning the heavens into an architect's ruler. But that's a story for another layer of this enigma. What if a building could tell time not with gears or numbers, but with shadows and sunlight? The Maya didn't just observe the stars, they wove the cosmos into their architecture, turning stone into celestial calendars. Nowhere is this more breathtaking than at Chichen Itza's El Castillo, where twice a year during the spring and fall equinoxes, the setting sun transforms the pyramid staircase into a slithering serpent. For exactly 24 minutes, triangles of light and shadow align with the carved stone head of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, creating the illusion of a divine snake descending from the heavens to earth. This wasn't an accident, it was mathematics in motion, a feat requiring such precise calculations that even modern architects marvel at its execution. But El Castillo is just the tip of the pyramid. Across the Mayan world, structures whisper secrets of celestial obsession. At Uxmal, the governor's palace lines up perfectly with the planet Venus at its southernmost rising point, a phenomenon occurring once every 8 years. In Capan, staircases double as astronomical markers, their steps counting the days between solstices like a stone abacus. Even their cities followed cosmic blueprints. Decode's temples align with the rising sun on key agricultural dates, signaling when to plant or harvest. This wasn't mere decoration. For the Maya, astronomy was survival. Their crops, their rituals, even their wars were timed to celestial events, making their pyramids both observatories and sacred clocks. How did they achieve such accuracy without telescopes or written formulas? The answer lies in patience, generations of shamans and scholars tracking the skies, recording patterns on bark paper codices, and passing down knowledge through oral traditions. They noticed cycles modern science would later confirm: Venus's 584-day orbit, the Moon's 19-year metonic cycle, even the subtle wobble of Earth's axis that causes the precession of equinoxes. Their pyramids became physical manifestations of this data, frozen equations in limestone. Yet the most haunting question remains: why? Why invest centuries in aligning stones with stars? For the Maya, the sky wasn't just a map, it was a mirror. Gods lived in celestial bodies, planets were deities on journeys. A pyramid that captured the sun during an equinox wasn't just marking time, it was hosting a god's visit, a moment when heaven touched earth. And perhaps that's the true genius of their designs. They didn't just build to last, they built to speak, crafting monuments that still whisper to us across 12 centuries in the language of light and shadow. But the astronomy connection goes deeper than spectacle. Recent scans reveal hidden chambers beneath El Castillo, where acoustic engineers discovered something chilling. Clap your hands at the pyramid's base, and the echo returns as the chirp of the sacred Quetzal bird. The Maya didn't just engineer for the eyes, they composed symphonies in stone, harmonizing architecture with the natural world in ways we're only beginning to decode. Digging deeper into the mysteries of the Mayan pyramids reveals something astonishing. These structures are like ancient nesting dolls, hiding secrets within secrets. Take El Castillo at Chichen Itza. What appears to be a single, towering masterpiece is actually a shell concealing not one, but two older pyramids buried inside. In the 1930s, archaeologists chipped away at the facade and uncovered a doorway leading to a hidden chamber, where walls still bore traces of vibrant red paint from 1,000 years earlier. This wasn't just renovation, it was ritual. The Maya didn't merely build over old temples, they entombed them. At sites like Tikal and Palenque, ground-penetrating radar has revealed pyramids within pyramids, each layer representing a new chapter in their civilization story. Why go through such effort? For the Maya, these structures were alive, infused with sacred energy. Covering an old temple wasn't destruction, it was preservation, a way to honor the past while making space for the future. Imagine it like a spiritual time capsule. Rulers would seal away older versions, often filling them with offerings, jade masks, obsidian blades, even the bones of revered ancestors before encasing them in new limestone skins. This practice might seem strange today, but for the Maya, it mirrored their worldview. Time wasn't linear, it moved in cycles like the rising and setting of Venus. A pyramid's rebirth symbolized continuity, connecting generations through shared sacred space. At Uxmal, archaeologists found an entire hidden courtyard beneath the Pyramid of the Magician, its murals depicting rituals lost to history. The most chilling discovery: some inner pyramids show signs of deliberate killing, ritual defacing, meant to release their spiritual essence before burial, like a ceremonial passing of the torch. What's truly humbling is the scale of this tradition. Some pyramids underwent 4 or 5 reconstructions over centuries, each phase grander than the last. At El Mirador, workers would have hauled millions of tons of stone just to encase what was already there. That persistence speaks volumes about their devotion, not just to gods or kings, but to memory itself. And here's the twist: these hidden layers might hold clues to the civilization's collapse. Changes in architectural styles, shifting materials, even traces of hurried construction in the final layers, all whisper of a society racing against time. Yet for all we've uncovered, the most tantalizing question remains unanswered. What else lies buried? With every pyramid scanned, new voids appear, uncharted chambers that could rewrite history. Maybe the greatest Mayan secrets aren't lost at all. They're waiting, tucked between the stones, for the right moment to reveal themselves. Beneath the shadow of Chichen Itza's towering pyramids lies a secret that chills the blood, a gaping sinkhole known as the sacred cenote, where the Maya believed the rain god Chak waited in his watery underworld. This wasn't just a natural formation, it was a sacred portal, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin. And the proof, over 50 skeletons, children, warriors, even nobles pulled from its depths, along with golden masks, jade figurines, and obsidian blades tossed like divine offerings into the abyss. The connection between pyramid and cenote wasn't accidental. Archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar made a spine-tingling discovery. An underground river snakes beneath El Castillo, linking it directly to the sacred cenote. For the Maya, water equaled life but also death. Their pyramids weren't standalone monuments, they were part of a vast spiritual circuit, with cenotes acting as batteries storing cosmic energy. During droughts, priests would climb the pyramid steps, chanting as they cast treasures and people into the sinkhole's depths, believing sacrifices would persuade Chak to send rain. What's haunting isn't just the scale of sacrifice but the precision. Divers found skeletons arranged in ritual poses, some with hands bound behind their backs, others clutching jade beads told payments for the underworld's gatekeepers. Gold discs bore etchings of the Maya cosmos, maps to guide souls through Xibalba, their terrifying realm of darkness. Even stranger, some bones show signs of being painted blue, the sacred color of sacrifice, while skulls bear marks consistent with ceremonial defleshing. This wasn't random violence, it was theater of the divine, a gruesome negotiation between mortals and gods. Yet the cenote's darkest secret might be what it reveals about Mayan desperation. As droughts worsened toward the civilization's collapse, sacrifices grew more frequent and more extreme. Layers of artifacts tell a grim story. Early offerings were jade and pottery, then came gold, and finally human lives. The deeper divers go, the more children's bones they find, some as young as 6. It's as if the Maya, sensing their world unraveling, doubled down on bargains with the gods, throwing their most precious treasures and people into the void, hoping for a miracle that never came. But here's the twist. Modern scientists tested cenote water and found traces of hallucinogens. Priests might have drugged victims before sacrifice, ensuring they entered Xibalba in ecstatic trances. Even the pyramid's acoustics played a role. Claps at El Castillo echo like thunder, mimicking Chak's voice. Every detail, from the sinkhole's depth to the way bodies were positioned, was choreographed to open a dialogue with the unseen. What lingers isn't just the horror, but the heartbreaking faith behind it. These weren't mindless killings, they were acts of terrible love, a civilization pleading with the cosmos to spare their world. And perhaps that's the cenote's true lesson, not about how the Maya died, but how fiercely they fought to live. Step into the great ball court at Chichen Itza and clap your hands once. What echoes back isn't just noise, but a haunting, high-pitched chirp identical to the sacred Quetzal bird. This isn't coincidence, it's acoustic engineering crafted with Stone Age precision. Across Mayan sites, pyramids and plazas manipulate sound in ways that defy their era, turning ordinary echoes into divine messages. At Decode, a whisper at the base of Temple 1 can be heard clearly 70 meters away atop Temple 2, a phenomenon modern architects struggle to replicate without microphones. How did a civilization without physics textbooks or sound waves master such auditory wizardry? The answer lies in their obsession with harmony, not just musical but cosmic. Mayan builders treated stone like an instrument, calculating angles and surfaces to resonate at specific frequencies. Take El Castillo's staircase. Its 91 steps, one for each day of a season, act like a sound filter. When priests chanted from the summit, their voices would amplify downward, warping into serpent-like hisses by the time they reached worshippers below. Some researchers believe this mimicry of the feathered serpent god's voice wasn't just theatrical, it was psychological warfare, using acoustics to induce trance states during rituals. Even more astonishing are the whispering galleries found in Palink's Temple of the Inscriptions. Two people standing at opposite ends of its vaulted chamber can speak in hushed tones and hear each other as clearly as if standing side by side, thanks to parabolic curves carved into the walls. Modern acoustic scans reveal these surfaces bounce sound waves in perfect arcs, a technique Europe wouldn't rediscover until the Renaissance, but the Maya didn't stop at parlor tricks. At Capon's hieroglyphic stairway, rhythmic footsteps trigger echoes that match the frequency of a human heartbeat, 60 beats per minute, suggesting ceremonies may have synced sound with pulse to deepen collective ecstasy. Why invest such effort in sonic illusions? For the Maya, sound was sacred. Their origin myths describe gods speaking the world into existence, and pyramids served as amplifiers for that creative power. During solstice ceremonies, when thousands gathered in plazas, the combination of chanting, drumming, and architectural acoustics would have created overwhelming sensory immersion. Recent experiments show certain pyramid staircases act like giant tuning forks, vibrating at frequencies that stimulate the brain's alpha waves, the same state induced by meditation. It's as if the stones themselves were programmed to alter consciousness. Yet the most chilling acoustic feat lies beneath Uxmal's Pyramid of the Magician. Deep within its hidden chambers, archaeologists found ceramic whistles shaped like jaguars. When blown, they emit frequencies below 20 Hz, infrasound undetectable to human ears but known to trigger feelings of dread or awe. Pair these with the pyramid's natural echo chambers and you have the recipe for a psychological masterpiece. Worshippers wouldn't just hear the gods, they'd feel them in their bones. What modern scientists call architectural acoustics, the Maya understood as magic. Their pyramids weren't silent monuments but living instruments, each one tuned to the frequencies of faith. And perhaps that's the real genius of their designs. They didn't just build for the eye. They composed entire symphonies in stone, ensuring their rituals would resonate long after their voices fell silent. At the peak of every Mayan pyramid, where the sky meets sacred stone, there should be a capstone, yet so many of these crowning jewels have vanished without a trace. This isn't just architectural vandalism, it's a riddle wrapped in history. Take Chichen Itza's El Castillo. Today, its summit stands bare, but carvings at its base depict a lavish, jewel-encrusted capstone glinting with spiritual significance. Where did it go? The theories are as layered as the pyramids themselves. Some point to the obvious: looters. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, they pried off gold-plated capstones, melting them down for bullion. Colonial records describe priests hacking away at pagan ornaments, erasing symbols of Maya cosmology. But here's the twist: many missing capstones show no signs of forced removal. Their absence is too clean, too deliberate. At Palink, archaeologists found grooves suggesting capstones were carefully lifted, not torn away. This hints at ritual extraction, perhaps during the abandonment of cities. The Maya might have believed these stones held a pyramid's soul, and removing them deactivated the structure's sacred power before departure. Then there's the celestial clue. Intact capstones discovered at remote sites like Calakmul are carved with constellations, mirroring the night sky on specific dates. These weren't mere decorations, they were cosmic anchors aligning the pyramid's energy with the heavens. Remove one and you sever that connection. Recent LiDAR scans reveal something eerie: pyramids stripped of capstones often have hidden chambers beneath their summits, filled with shattered jade and charcoal. Was dismantling the crown part of a termination ritual, a symbolic killing of the building itself? Yet the most tantalizing evidence comes from Capon, where a rare surviving capstone depicts the god Itzamna descending as a bird, his wings outstretched to nest atop the pyramid. This wasn't just art, it was a transformer, turning stone into a vessel for divine presence. Perhaps that's why so many are missing. If capstones were seen as literal conduits for gods, taking them might have been an act of preservation, a way to protect the sacred from defilement by invaders or time itself. Every absent capstone is a silent storyteller, whispering of a civilization that didn't just build monuments but knew when to dismantle them, leaving behind puzzles in plain sight. And somewhere in the jungle, buried or hidden, these missing crowns might still wait, holding the final key to understanding how the Maya saw the line between earth and heaven. Standing atop Ticol's Temple 4, the tallest pyramid in the city, you're not just looking at a skyline, you're staring at a perfect replica of the night sky. Every temple, every plaza, even the causeways snake through the jungle like constellations drawn in stone. This wasn't urban planning, it was celestial cartography. The Maya didn't just study the stars, they rebuilt them on Earth, turning their cities into mirrors of the heavens. At Tikal, the 5 great pyramids align precisely with the brightest stars in the Pleiades cluster. The sprawling Grand Plaza, a terrestrial echo of Orion's belt, with temples positioned to mimic the angle and spacing of its 3 iconic stars. Even the distances between structures match the relative brightness of their celestial counterparts. Brighter stars became taller pyramids, fainter ones were smaller shrines. This cosmic blueprint wasn't unique to Tikal. At Kapon, the hieroglyphic stairway curves to mirror the serpentine shape of the Milky Way, known to the Maya as the White Road of the underworld. Uxmal's buildings form a near-perfect scale model of the Draco constellation, while the entire city of Palenque aligns to the setting sun on the winter solstice, when the Maya believed the sun god descended into Xibalba. These patterns weren't decorative, they were devotional. By duplicating the heavens on Earth, the Maya blurred the boundary between mortal and divine, creating portals where gods could step into their world. How did they achieve such precision without satellites or aerial views? Archaeologists have uncovered stone star maps at sites like El Peru Waka, where carvings depict constellations alongside pyramid layouts. But the real genius lay in their observational patience. Generations of priest astronomers tracked celestial movements using crossed sticks as rudimentary sextants, recording data on bark paper codices. When a star's position shifted over centuries due to Earth's axial precession, they'd physically adjust their cities, expanding pyramids or shifting causeways to maintain alignment. This wasn't just astronomy, it was a dialogue with time itself. The most spine-tingling proof lies in the Dresden Codex, a surviving Mayan manuscript. Its Venus tables predict the planet's movements with an error margin of just 2 hours over 500 years, a feat requiring observations spanning generations. Modern researchers comparing these tables to pyramid layouts made a chilling discovery. Certain temples mark positions where Venus would have appeared during key battles or coronations, turning stone into a kind of historical archive written in starlight. Yet the most profound insight isn't about accuracy, it's about intention. For the Maya, replicating constellations wasn't metaphorical, it was metaphysical. They believed earthly structures could harness celestial energy, charging rulers with divine power during planetary alignments. When a king stood atop a pyramid aligned with the rising sun on his birthday, he wasn't just celebrating, he was temporarily becoming the god his people saw in the stars. This fusion of architecture and astronomy creates a haunting legacy. Cities that didn't just reflect the cosmos but conversed with it, stone whispering to sky across the centuries. And perhaps that's why these alignments still matter today. On certain mornings at Tikal, when mist curls between the temples and the first light hits just right, something extraordinary happens. The jungle falls silent, the stones seem to breathe, and for one fleeting moment you can almost see what the Maya saw. A world where heaven and earth weren't separate realms but 2 halves of the same eternal pattern. High above the jungle canopy, where the air thins and the gods feel closest, Mayan rulers performed ceremonies so extreme they border on the unimaginable. At the summit of temples like Yaxchilan's Structure 23, kings and queens drew blood from their own bodies not as punishment but as sacred duty. Intricate carvings show Lady Zoc, a powerful queen, pulling a rope studded with obsidian shards through her tongue, letting ribbons of blood fall onto bark paper to be burned as divine smoke. Her husband, Shield Jaguar, holds a flaming torch above her, illuminating this act of devotion in stone. This wasn't torture, it was transcendence. The tools of these rituals were as precise as they were terrifying. Stingray spines, their serrated edges perfect for piercing flesh without causing fatal wounds, have been found buried in pyramid courtyards, still stained with centuries-old hemoglobin. Obsidian blades, sharper than modern surgical steel, were engraved with glyphs labeling them as wind jewels, instruments to open the way for spirits. At Palenque, archaeologists discovered a ceremonial bloodletter hidden beneath a throne, its handle carved into the likeness of the god Keahuil, who embodied lightning and royal power. These objects weren't hidden away, they were displayed with pride, physical proof of a ruler's willingness to suffer for their people. Why go to such extremes? Blood was more than life force, it was currency. The Maya believed the gods had spilled their own blood to create humanity, and this debt required repayment. During solstices or planetary alignments, rulers would ascend pyramid steps already weakened by fasting, their bodies prepared as living conduits. When their blood dripped onto copal incense, the resulting smoke was thought to carry prayers directly to the spirit world. Some carvings depict visions emerging from these blood-soaked clouds, serpentine deities whispering secrets, or ancestors materializing to offer guidance. The more blood shed, the clearer the message. The most chilling evidence comes from Tikal's Temple of the Grand Jaguar, where residue analysis revealed traces of human blood mixed with tree resin in summit braziers. This wasn't just self-sacrifice on special occasions. Captive warriors or criminals were brought to the apex, their hearts extracted with obsidian knives, their blood funneled down pyramid grooves like divine irrigation. The architecture itself facilitated these acts. Narrow summit chambers amplified screams into echoes resembling jaguar roars, while strategically placed drainage channels ensured no drop was wasted. Yet beneath the horror lies a profound logic. These rulers weren't tyrants, they were intermediaries, bearing pain to prevent cosmic collapse. A king's blood ensured rain for crops, a queen's suffering averted plagues. In their world, a few moments of agony atop the pyramid could mean decades of prosperity below. And perhaps that's the hardest truth to comprehend, that what we see as brutality, they saw as the ultimate act of leadership. The carvings tell one final secret. After bloodletting, participants would hallucinate from blood loss and incense fumes, their visions recorded as divine prophecies. In this altered state, the pyramid became more than stone. It was a ladder between worlds, each step upward stained with the proof of human devotion, each droplet a whispered plea to forces beyond our understanding. There's something deeply unsettling about standing in the ruins of Palenque at dusk, when shadows stretch across half-finished pyramids and silent courtyards. This wasn't just a city abandoned, it was a civilization pressing pause at the height of its power. Towering structures like the Temple of the Inscriptions were left with scaffolds still clinging to their sides, as if workers simply dropped their tools one day and walked away. The mystery of why the Maya deserted their greatest cities isn't just about collapse, it's about choices. What forces could have been so catastrophic that even pyramids, their sacred anchors to the cosmos, were left incomplete? Clues hide in the very stones. At Palenque's palace, archaeologists found a chilling detail. The final layer of plaster was applied hastily, without the usual intricate carvings. In Tikal, a sudden shift in construction materials appears: weaker mortar, smaller limestone blocks, as if resources were running thin. But the most damning evidence comes from lakebed cores drilled across the Yucatan. Pollen samples tell a story of creeping disaster. As the climate shifted around the 9th century, decades of relentless drought turned fertile soil to dust. Tree rings from nearby forests confirm it. The worst dry spell in 2,000 years coincided exactly with the mass exodus from cities like Capon and Calakmul. Yet drought alone doesn't explain the speed. Mayan societies had weathered dry periods before. What changed? Warfare glyphs tell another piece of the story. In the final years, monuments stop boasting of cosmic alignments and instead scream of battles. At Dos Pilas, a staircase inscription describes rival kingdoms burning crops and poisoning wells. Skeletons from this era show brutal violence, mass graves with skulls cleft by obsidian axes. It's as if the drought lit a fuse and centuries of political tension exploded. Kings who once offered their blood to gods now demanded it from enemies, tearing the social fabric beyond repair. Perhaps most haunting are the unfinished pyramids themselves. At Yaxchilon, a half-carved stela shows a king mid-ritual, his features blurred as if the sculptor fled mid-stroke. In Quirigá, workers abandoned a massive ball court with the scoring markers only half installed. These aren't just abandoned projects, they're frozen moments, snapshots of a society unraveling in real time. Some archaeologists believe the Maya saw the writing on the wall. As reservoirs dried up and trade routes collapsed, completing cosmic monuments might have seemed futile. Better to conserve resources or flee to smaller, more sustainable communities. But here's the twist, not everyone left. Recent discoveries in the Pook Hills reveal small groups clinging to modified pyramids, adapting them for practical survival. Cisterns were dug into sacred plazas, temple steps became terraced gardens. This wasn't an extinction, it was a transformation. The Maya didn't vanish, they redistributed, trading grandeur for resilience. And that might be the ultimate lesson of their unfinished pyramids. Even the mightiest civilizations are fleeting, but survival isn't about permanence. It's about knowing when to walk away from stone giants and carry the wisdom forward in smaller, quieter ways. Standing before the weathered stones of a Mayan pyramid today, it's hard to picture these structures as anything but solemn gray monuments, but the truth would have blinded you with color. Every inch of these sacred buildings once blazed in vibrant crimson, coated in a paint so vivid it could be seen for miles across the jungle canopy. This wasn't mere decoration, it was a cosmic statement. The Maya didn't just build pyramids, they set them on fire with color, using a pigment derived from iron-rich clay mixed with resin from the sacred copal tree. When sunlight struck these surfaces at dawn, the entire pyramid would glow like embers, transforming into a beacon of life and divinity. Traces of this scarlet legacy still cling to hidden crevices. At Calakmul, archaeologists using ultraviolet light detected ghostly outlines of red frescoes beneath centuries of grime. Their once brilliant hues now faded to faint whispers. In Tikol's temple of the Great Jaguar, flakes of pigment collected from stair grooves revealed a recipe far more sophisticated than simple dye. The Maya cooked their paint at precise temperatures, blending mineral oxides with plant gums to create a coating that resisted monsoon rains and tropical sun. Some samples even contained traces of honey, a natural preservative that may have extended the paint's lifespan. Why red? In Mayan cosmology, color wasn't arbitrary. Red mirrored the lifeblood of sacrifice and the fiery path of the sun god Kinish Ahau as he crossed the sky. Temples painted scarlet became literal extensions of the celestial realm, their surfaces symbolizing the thin membrane between earth and heaven. At Edsna's 5-story pyramid, restorers found evidence of multiple repaintings, each layer applied during significant astronomical events, as if renewing a sacred contract with the cosmos. The brightest reds were reserved for pyramid summits, creating the illusion that the structures were perpetually crowned with the light of dawn. The most haunting discovery comes from Palink's Temple of the Sun. There, conservators uncovered a hidden palette of pigments beneath the floor, not just red, but also traces of Maya blue, greens from malachite, and yellows from orpiment. This suggests some pyramids may have been polychrome masterpieces, with red dominating but accents highlighting carvings or celestial motifs. Yet time has been cruel. Exposure to centuries of humidity and microbial growth has eaten away at these colors. leaving behind only phantom patterns visible under infrared imaging. What survives tells a paradoxical story. In places where paint flakes remain, the stones beneath show less erosion, proof that the very pigment meant to glorify these structures also protected them. The Maya understood something modern science confirms. Their paint acted as a sacrificial layer, weathering so the limestone wouldn't. Even in fading, the red fulfills its original purpose, preserving the sacred, long after the hands that applied it turned to dust. Today, when rain slicks down a pyramid steps for one fleeting moment, the stones darken to a shade that hints at their forgotten brilliance, a ghostly echo of the world's most vivid monuments. Beneath the towering pyramids of the Maya, the earth whispers secrets through a labyrinth of tunnels so vast they redefine our understanding of these sacred spaces. Recent LiDAR scans, those same laser technologies that peeled back the jungle canopy, have revealed something astonishing. Entire networks of hidden passageways snaking beneath cities like Decode and El Mirador, some stretching over a kilometer into the darkness. These aren't natural caves, walls smoothed to a mirror finish, ceilings arched with precise geometry, and ventilation shafts angled to catch specific breezes. Every detail screams intentional design. At Palink's Temple of the Inscriptions, archaeologists discovered a tunnel descending from the tomb of King Pakal straight down into the pyramid's heart, ending at a sealed chamber filled with jade figurines and 9 obsidian mirrors. Why 9? In Mayan numerology, it symbolized the layers of the underworld, but here's where it gets eerie. Ground-penetrating radar shows these tunnels often align with celestial events. One at Decode runs perfectly east-west, flooding with sunlight during equinoxes until the beam illuminates a hidden altar at its end. Another beneath Kaaba twists in a spiral mirroring the Milky Way's path on the winter solstice. The most chilling discovery came in 2019 when explorers crawling through a tight passage beneath Calakmul's structure 2 hit a wall, only to realize it was hollow. Behind it lay a room untouched for 12 centuries, its floor carpeted in stingray spines, bloodletting tools, and the skeletons of 6 children arranged in a star pattern. Nearby, ceramic whistles shaped like howler monkeys still bore fingerprints in their clay, last touched by hands that vanished into history. Why build such elaborate underground worlds? Some tunnels clearly served as ritual pathways. Initiates might have crawled through darkness for days, emerging reborn into pyramid summits. Others show evidence of psychoacoustic design. Certain chambers amplify chants into deafening echoes, while narrow passages distort sound into animal growls. But the most provocative theory comes from the Belizean jungle, where a tunnel beneath Caracol's main pyramid leads to a flooded chamber. Divers found stone boxes containing human teeth and mercury, a liquid metal the Maya called the blood of the earth, suggesting some spaces were deliberately charged with symbolic energy. Today, only 10% of these tunnels have been explored. Robots with fiber optic cameras now navigate passages too dangerous for humans, revealing frescoes of underworld gods and ceilings studded with stalactites carved into serpent fangs. Each discovery raises more questions. Were these the white roads described in creation myth's literal paths to Xibalba? Or did they serve as cosmic resonators, channeling energies we've yet to comprehend? One thing's certain, the Maya didn't just build upward toward the heavens. They dug downward, crafting a mirror universe beneath our feet, where every shadow holds a story waiting to be unearthed. The legend of Uxmal's Pyramid of the Magician begins with a whisper, the kind of story passed down through generations where truth and myth blur into something magical. According to Mayan folklore, this towering structure didn't rise slowly under the hands of laborers, but appeared in a single night, conjured by a dwarf king born from a mystical egg. The tale goes that a cunning old witch longing for power hatched the dwarf and challenged him to prove his divine right by accomplishing impossible feats. His final task: construct a pyramid before sunrise. As the story goes, the dwarf king summoned supernatural forces, and by dawn the pyramid stood complete, its curved slopes defying the laws of nature. The witch, defeated, vanished into the shadows, leaving the dwarf to rule Uxmal as its rightful sovereign. But peel back the layers of legend, and archaeology reveals something just as fascinating. The Pyramid of the Magician wasn't built in a night, but over 5 distinct phases, each one a chapter in Uxmal's evolving story. Ground-penetrating radar shows a smaller, earlier temple buried beneath the visible structure, its rough-hewn stones dating back to the 6th century. Subsequent rulers expanded it, adding new facades and staircases, each phase more refined than the last. The final iteration, with its sweeping elliptical base, a rarity in Mayan architecture, was designed to align with Venus's southernmost rising point, turning the pyramid into a celestial marker. The contrast between myth and reality raises a compelling question. Why would a civilization so precise in its astronomy and engineering embrace such a fantastical origin story? The answer might lie in the pyramid's unique design. Unlike the angular temples of Tikal or Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of the Magician's rounded sides create an optical illusion. At certain times of day, shadows cascade down its steps like rippling water, giving the impression the structure is alive, breathing. This wasn't accidental. The Maya often wove metaphor into architecture, and the dwarf's overnight construction could symbolize the pyramid's role as a bridge between worlds where the ordinary and miraculous coexisted. Even more intriguing are the artifacts found within. Excavations unearthed a cache of dwarf-sized figurines near the base, some clutching building tools, others wearing crowns. Were these votive offerings to honor the legend or evidence of a real ruler who inspired the tale? Nearby, a hidden chamber revealed murals depicting a tiny figure receiving a scepter from gods, flanked by dates matching periods of drought. Perhaps the Dwarf King was a historical leader who rose to power during crisis, his legacy immortalized in stone and story. Today, the Pyramid of the Magician stands as both monument and riddle. By day, its steps echo with the footsteps of visitors. By night, when the jungle hums and shadows lengthen, it's easy to imagine the Dwarf King still watching from the summit, his creation a testament to the Maya's genius for blending the earthly and the ethereal. And that's the real magic, not just in the legend, but in how a civilization could craft a pyramid so awe-inspiring, it made the impossible feel tangible. Climb the steps of El Castillo at Chichen Itza, and you're not just ascending a pyramid, you're walking through a living calendar carved in stone, that iconic staircase. Each of its 4 sides has 91 steps. Add the single shared step at the top, and you get 365, one for every day of the solar year. But this mathematical poetry doesn't stop there. The pyramid's 9 terraces divide neatly into 2 staircases per side, mirroring the 18 months in the Mayan Hob calendar. Even more mind-bending, the 52 panels on its walls correspond to the 52 years it takes for the Mayan solar and sacred calendars to realign, a cycle they considered sacred enough to etch into architecture. What makes this precision truly staggering is the context. While Europe fumbled with Roman numerals, the Maya had not only grasped the concept of zero, but were using it in complex calculations centuries before the Old World. Their decimal system, based on 20 instead of 10, allowed them to crunch numbers into the millions using just 3 symbols, a shell for 0, a dot for 1, and a bar for 5. At Capon, astronomers calculated the lunar cycle as 29.53059 days, a figure off by just 34 seconds from modern measurements. That's like hitting a bullseye from 5 miles away without a telescope. This mathematical genius wasn't limited to calendars. Pyramid proportions hide geometric secrets. The ratio of height to base at El Castillo approximates pi, while Palink's Temple of the Cross encodes the golden ratio in its facade dimensions. Some researchers believe these weren't accidents but deliberate acts of sacred geometry, a way to fuse mathematical truth with spiritual meaning. At Uxmal, the governor's palace's doorway widths follow a Fibonacci sequence, a pattern found in sunflower seeds and galaxy arms, proving the Maya saw numbers as the universe's hidden language. The most telling evidence comes from Dresden Codex, a surviving Mayan manuscript. Its Venus tables predict the planet's movements with jaw-dropping accuracy, using correction factors that account for celestial drift over centuries. To achieve this, Mayan mathematicians developed algorithms akin to modern calculus, iterating equations through generations. Their pyramids served as stone calculators, three-dimensional representations of these celestial mechanics. Stand at the base of El Caracol in Chichen Itza, and you're facing an observatory whose narrow windows frame Venus at its most extreme northerly positions, a feat requiring logarithmic precision. What's truly humbling is realizing these structures weren't just containers for math, they were expressions of it. Every corner, every stair, every carved glyph whispers a civilization that saw numbers not as abstractions, but as living forces woven into the fabric of reality. And perhaps that's their final lesson, that true understanding doesn't live on parchment or screens, but in stones that still count the days long after their makers turn to dust. On the great ball court of Chichen Itza, beneath the looming shadow of El Castillo, a game unfolded where victory meant glory and defeat could mean death. The Maya didn't just play ball here, they staged ritual battles so intense the outcome was a matter of life and sacrifice. The court's towering walls, carved with scenes of decapitated players, tell a chilling story. This was no sport. It was cosmic theater, with the pyramids as their grand stage and the gods as the ultimate spectators. What made these games so deadly? The rules remain foggy, but glyphs and artwork reveal glimpses. Players used hips and elbows to drive a heavy rubber ball, weighing up to 4 kilograms through stone rings mounted high on the walls. The ball's movement symbolized the sun's journey across the sky, and scoring was so rare that some courts show rings worn smooth from centuries of near misses. Yet the real stakes lay in the spiritual stakes. The ball court wasn't just adjacent to the pyramid, it was spiritually tethered to it. At Kapan, a hidden tunnel connects the court directly to the temple's inner sanctum, suggesting rituals where blood spilled on the court flowed symbolically into the pyramid's heart. The most haunting evidence comes from the Popol Vuh, the Maya's sacred text. It describes legendary ball players, the hero twins, who defeated the lords of the underworld in a grueling match, only to be sacrificed and reborn as celestial bodies. This myth wasn't just folklore, it was a blueprint. Captives taken in war were often forced to reenact this drama, their games culminating in public sacrifices atop the pyramid. At El Tajin, reliefs show victorious players holding the severed heads of opponents, while the pyramid stares bare grooves that may have channeled blood downhill, a grisly echo of the hero twins' descent into Xibalba. But here's the twist, not all losers died. Some scholars argue sacrifice was an honor reserved for the most skilled players or noble captives. Their deaths weren't punishment but promotion, a direct ticket to the afterlife as attendants to the gods. At Chichen Itza's great ball court, acoustics amplify even a whisper into an eerie chorus, suggesting sacrifices may have been accompanied by chants that transformed terror into transcendence. The pyramid's alignment intensified this effect. During equinoxes, shadows from El Castillo would slither down the court's walls like serpents, turning the entire space into a portal between worlds. The ball courts and pyramids weren't just neighbors, they were partners in a sacred dialogue. Victories were celebrated with processions up the pyramid steps, while defeats were resolved in its shadow. Together, they formed a cycle: life, death, and rebirth carved not just into stone, but into the very rhythm of Mayan civilization. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson. For the Maya, even death wasn't an end. It was just another move in the greatest game of all. Among the most ingenious structures built by the Maya are the peculiar E-group complexes, pyramid arrangements so precisely engineered they functioned as open-air solar observatories. Named after their discovery at Uxmal's Group E, These formations typically consist of a long, low platform facing a dominant pyramid, with smaller auxiliary structures positioned like celestial bookends. But don't let their simple layout fool you. These were stone calendars designed to catch the sun's movements with split-second accuracy. At Caracol's Corner complex, the Eastern Pyramid stairway aligns perfectly with the rising sun during equinoxes, casting a blade of light that bisects the plaza below, while solstice sunrises flare between strategically placed corner markers like cosmic gateways. The real magic happens in the shadows. During the winter solstice at Uxacton's Group E, the sun rises directly over the northernmost small temple when viewed from the main pyramid. 6 months later, on the summer solstice, it pops up over the southern counterpart, the equinox's dead center. This three-point alignment created a celestial crosshair, letting priests predict seasonal changes down to the day critical for agriculture in a land where planting a week too late could mean starvation. Archaeologists testing these alignments with modern theodolites found the angles accurate within 1/4 of a degree, a margin so tight it defies the era's supposed technological limits. Caracol's observatory takes precision further. Its western staircase has recessed steps that catch the setting sun only during the zenith passage, the 2 days each year when the sun stands directly overhead at noon and casts no shadow. This phenomenon, unique to the tropics, signaled the onset of torrential rains. The Maya didn't just observe it, they built doorways that funneled the zenith sunlight into beams illuminating hidden interior altars, turning architecture into a kind of stone-powered alarm clock for monsoon season. What's truly groundbreaking is how these E-groups evolved. Early versions like those at Nak Bay used basic alignment, but later iterations at Tikal and Calakmul incorporated mathematical refinements. Their builders adjusted pyramid heights and spacings to compensate for the slow wobble in Earth's axis, a shift called axial precession that alters star positions over centuries. This means Maya astronomers weren't just tracking the sky, they were correcting their stone instruments across generations to maintain accuracy, treating their pyramids like a civilization-scale science project. The most haunting clue to their purpose lies in the Dresden Codex. Its pages contain corrections to solar year calculations that match architectural tweaks found in E-group renovations, proof that scribes and masons collaborated across disciplines. These weren't just temples where priests guessed at celestial patterns. They were laboratories where architecture and astronomy fused into something transcendent, places where humanity first learned to read time in the tilt of sunlight on stone. Standing apart from the angular pyramids dominating most Mayan cities, Bikan's bizarre rounded towers rise from the jungle like stone beehives frozen mid-swarm. These unusual cylindrical structures, found nowhere else in the Maya world, curve inward as they climb, their smooth limestone surfaces devoid of the typical step terraces. Local legends whisper that these weren't built by human hands at all, but by Amuzen Kab, the Mayan bee god himself, who shaped the towers to mirror his celestial hives. Archaeologists first dismissed these forms as erosion damage until they noticed the precision. Each curve follows exact geometric ratios with interior chambers shaped like honeycomb cells. The largest tower, Structure 1, contains a hidden altar decorated with repeating hexagon patterns, identical to wax comb formations, even more compelling. Stingless bee colonies sacred to the Maya still nest in crevices around the base, drawn to the same resin-rich mortar used in construction. This wasn't accidental mimicry. The Maya blended observation with devotion, crafting architecture that honored nature's perfect architects. But why bees? For the Maya, these insects weren't just honey producers, they were cosmic messengers. The Dresden Codex depicts Amuzen Kab as a winged deity ferrying souls between worlds, his buzzing wings mirroring the sound of the sacred wind. At Bikan, priests may have performed rituals where smoke from beeswax candles funneled through the tower's unique ventilation shafts, creating eerie harmonic resonance. Modern acoustical tests reveal something extraordinary. When certain tones are sung inside the main chamber, the rounded walls amplify specific frequencies that mimic the vibration of a bee's flight, a sonic trick that would have made worshippers feel surrounded by divine presence. The tower's alignment adds another layer of mystery. During the spring equinox, sunlight pierces a narrow aperture at structure 9, projecting a golden disk that travels across the interior wall like a creeping sunspot, an effect lasting exactly 65 minutes, matching the average lifespan of a worker bee. Coincidence unlikely. For a civilization that tracked time in breaths and heartbeats, such precision was sacred mathematics. What remains unanswered is whether these structures housed actual apiaries. While no hives survive, traces of propolis, a resin bees used to seal their homes, cling to certain niches. Perhaps Bican wasn't just a ceremonial site but a thriving center of meloponiculture, where priests cultivated sacred bees alongside celestial rituals. The tower's shaded bases would have provided ideal conditions for stingless colonies, while their height kept honey safe from jungle predators. Nowhere else did the Maya fuse biology and architecture so seamlessly. These weren't just temples, they were living monuments where the boundary between worship and ecology blurred into something miraculous. And perhaps that's the real lesson of Bican's beehive pyramids, that the Maya saw divinity not just in grand gestures, but in the quiet hum of wings against stone. Climbing Capon's hieroglyphic stairway feels like walking through a stone encyclopedia, each of its 63 steps painstakingly carved with over 2,000 glyphs, telling a story so grand it took an entire dynasty to write it. This isn't just decoration, it's history etched in limestone, a sprawling epic of kings and conquest stretching back centuries, the stairway's centerpiece. A procession of rulers, each figure seated on a throne glyph, their names and deeds woven into intricate cartouches. One panel depicts the powerful King Waxaclajun Abakayawil, his headdress adorned with jade, presiding over a victory against a rival city. Another shows a young prince receiving the symbols of office from his father, the glyphs around them humming with political intrigue, dates of accession, alliances sealed with royal marriages, even the ominous mention of Star War, their term for celestial authorized battles. Decoding these symbols reveals layers of Mayan ambition. Take step 7, where a particularly vivid glyph cluster describes a queen named Yol Iknal commissioning the stairway's expansion after repelling an invasion. The carvings don't just record events, they frame them. Battles aren't merely described, they're dramatized with artistic flair. Enemy warriors tumble down temple steps, their names deliberately defaced in a symbolic erasure of their legacy. Victories are punctuated with depictions of bloodletting rituals atop pyramids, smoke curling toward the heavens as tribute bundles spill exotic feathers and jade. The stairway isn't just reporting history, it's staging a theatrical production where every king is the hero of his own saga. Yet for all its grandeur, the stairway holds darker secrets. Toward the base, glyphs abruptly shift in style, cruder, rushed, as if the artisans were working against time. Archaeologists found evidence supporting this. The final steps were laid hastily, with gaps filled by recycled stones from older monuments. This wasn't mere renovation, it was desperation. The dates cluster around the early 9th century, coinciding with Capon's decline. One poignant glyph shows a ruler known as Yaks Passage Chan Yopot, his titles incomplete, standing before a half-finished pyramid. The message is hauntingly clear, even stone chronicles can't outrun collapse. What makes this stairway revolutionary isn't just its content, but its medium. While other civilizations wrote on perishable parchment, the Maya carved their legacy into the very bones of their cities. Each glyph was more than a word, it was a performance. Sunlight hitting the steps at dawn would animate certain cartouches first, highlighting favored rulers or pivotal battles. During solstices, shadows sliced through specific name glyphs as if the sun itself were reading aloud. This was history as interactive theater designed to awe subjects and intimidate enemies. The most astonishing revelation came in 2021 when multispectral imaging exposed faint traces of pigment in the grooves. Originally, the stairway would have blazed in color: red for blood, blue for jade, gold for divine light. Epigraphers now believe certain glyphs were even inlaid with mirrors, catching the sun to flash messages across the plaza below. Imagine a visitor approaching Capon. First, the pyramid's sheer scale would tower over them. Then the glittering stairway would command their gaze, its colors and reflections telegraphing power long before they could read a single glyph. But the stairway's true genius lies in its duality. For the elite, it was a census of power. For the illiterate masses, it was a visual spectacle, a comic strip of conquest where posture, size, and placement conveyed hierarchy. A defeated king wasn't just named, he was carved smaller, slumped beneath his conqueror's sandal. The Maya understood something modern propagandists know: history belongs to those who carve it deepest. And in Capon's case, they carved it into the very steps that led to heaven. At the heart of Tikol's sacred complex, the North Acropolis looms with a design that shatters our modern expectations of pyramid architecture. Unlike the singular summits we associate with Egypt's monuments, this towering structure unfolds in three distinct temples, each representing a realm of the Mayan cosmos. The lowest platform, cloaked in shadows even at noon, mirrors Xibalba, the watery underworld where skeletal gods ruled. Its walls bear carvings of nocturnal creatures, bats, owls, and the gaping maw of the cosmic crocodile said to swim through the darkness beneath the earth. Step upward to the middle terrace and you enter the human world. Vibrant murals depict market scenes, ball games, and coronations, all painted in pigments made from crushed insects and sacred blue clay. But ascend to the highest temple, and the decor shifts dramatically here. Feathered serpents coil around star maps, and the roof comb stretches toward the sky like fingers grasping for the heavens. This triadic design wasn't just symbolic theater. It was a spiritual ladder. Rituals began in the underworld temple, where priests painted themselves black to blend with the shadows, offering jade figurines and spiny oyster shells to the lords of death. After bloodletting ceremonies, they'd emerge onto the middle level, now embodying the axis between worlds, to address crowds of worshippers. Finally, at the summit, they'd burn copal resin so pungent its smoke could be seen from neighboring cities, a signal that human pleas had reached the gods. Archaeologists found charcoal deposits at these upper temples containing traces of hallucinogenic morning glory seeds, proof that contact with the celestial realm was chemically assisted. What's fascinating is how these three layers reflect Mayan daily life. Homes were often built on three-level storage pits below, living quarters at ground level, and raised sleeping platforms mirroring the cosmic order. Even their ball courts followed this pattern, the playing field as the earthly plane, the sloping walls as the underworld's incline, and the stone rings as celestial portals. At Nakhum, a triadic pyramid stairway aligns so precisely that during the summer solstice, the sun appears to pause at each level, first illuminating underworld carvings at dawn, then hitting the middle temple at noon before gilding the summit's crest at sunset. It's as if the entire structure was designed to trap sunlight, conducting it like a divine current. But the true genius of this design lies in its adaptability. When drought or war disrupted society, the Maya didn't abandon these pyramids, they rebalanced them. At Yaxha, archaeologists found evidence that during a 9th century crisis, the underworld temple was expanded while the celestial one was deliberately defaced. This wasn't vandalism, it was recalibration. By emphasizing the lower realm, they may have been pleading directly with the rain gods, acknowledging their world's precarious position between drowning and thirst. Today, when you stand before these triple-tiered giants, you're not just seeing ruins, you're witnessing a worldview carved in stone. The Maya didn't separate earth from sky or life from death. They built bridges between them, one sacred level at a time, and perhaps that's their most enduring lesson. that true understanding doesn't come from looking up or down, but from recognizing how deeply they're connected. At the heart of Palink's Temple of the Inscriptions, hidden behind layers of limestone and time, rests one of the most enigmatic artifacts ever uncovered in the Mayan world, the jaguar throne. Carved from a single block of creamy white limestone, this ornate seat depicts two lifelike jaguars, their powerful haunches tensed as if ready to spring, their obsidian-inlaid eyes seeming to track your every move. But this was no ordinary chair. When archaeologists first brushed away the dust in 1952, they realized they weren't just looking at furniture. They'd uncovered a portal between worlds where kings became gods and jaguars walked as men. For the Maya, jaguars weren't just animals, they were shapeshifters, straddling the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms. Glyphs at Yaxchilan describe kings donning jaguar pelts before bloodletting rituals, their human forms momentarily merging with the beast's essence to commune with ancestors. The throne's placement confirms this sacred metamorphosis. It sits precisely atop the tomb of Pakal the Great, positioned so the deceased ruler's spirit could ascend directly through the seat, emerging reborn in the jaguar's form. Even the throne's posture tells a story. Its backrest curves at 73 degrees, matching the angle of Pakal's sarcophagus lid below, creating a mirrored axis between burial chamber and ceremonial space. What's truly chilling are the throne's acoustic properties. When tested by modern researchers, speaking into its carved mouthpiece projects sound downward through hidden channels into Pakal's tomb, distorting human voice into something unnervingly growl-like. Imagine a new ruler seated here during coronation, his words transmuted into jaguar snarls that echoed through the temple's stairwell, a sonic illusion convincing subjects their king commanded the beast's power. But Palink's throne isn't unique. At Kapan, a similar jaguar seat was found deliberately shattered, not by looters but by the Maya themselves. The fractures follow precise lines, suggesting ritual killing to release its spiritual energy when the dynasty fell. Another at Calakmul bears claw marks from actual jaguars, possibly ceremonially allowed to sharpen their claws on the stone as a living embodiment of the throne's power. The most haunting detail, traces of cinnabar paint still clinging to these throne surfaces. The Maya coated them in this mercury-rich pigment, which turns blood red when wet, transforming the jaguars into seemingly bleeding specters during rain ceremonies. Sitting rulers would have appeared to ride creatures oozing liquid sunlight, their own bloodletting wounds mingling with the throne's scarlet sheen. These thrones weren't just symbols. They were alchemical devices turning political authority into visceral magic. Every snarl carved into the limestone, every inlaid fang, whispered the same unshakable truth, that to rule was to walk the knife's edge between human and divine, with the jaguar's spirit as your guide. And perhaps that's why so many thrones survived when other treasures were looted, because some powers are too terrifying to steal. High above Uxmal's governor's palace, the planet Venus doesn't just shine, it dictates. Every 8 years, when this brilliant celestial body reaches its southernmost point in the sky, something extraordinary happens. The entire facade of this pyramid aligns perfectly with its glow, as if the building itself were reaching out to touch the star. This wasn't architectural coincidence, it was cosmic choreography, a testament to the Mayan obsession with Venus that shaped their wars, harvests, and very sense of time. For the Maya, Venus wasn't just a pretty light, it was a harbinger of chaos and creation. They called it Chak-Ek, the great star, and tracked its movements with terrifying precision. Their astronomers calculated its 584-day cycle, the time it takes to return to the same position in the sky, with an error margin of just 2 hours over 5 centuries. That's like predicting the exact minute sunrise would occur on a specific day 500 years from now, all without telescopes or computers. At Uxmal, this knowledge was carved into stone. The palace's central doorway frames Venus at its most extreme southerly position, while its 98, yes, exactly 98 mask carvings along the facade correspond to Venus's cenotic periods over a span of 20 years. Even the pyramid's odd angles aren't decorative, they're deliberate, designed to cast shadows that interact with Venus's light during critical dates. On mornings when the planet rose as the morning star, priests would watch as its gleam slid down the building's cornices, illuminating glyphs that signaled whether it was time to plant corn or prepare for battle. Warfare and agriculture were Venus's domain. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan texts, contains detailed Venus tables warning of the planet's danger periods when its appearances were thought to incite conflict. Historical records carved on stelae confirm this. Major battles consistently cluster around Venus's heliacal rising when it becomes visible after a period behind the sun. At sites like Decode and Naranjo, kings timed military campaigns to these celestial cues, believing Chak-Ek infused their warriors with divine fury. But Venus's influence wasn't just destructive. Its cycles also governed planting seasons. The Maya noticed that its first appearance as the morning star after inferior conjunction when it passes between Earth and the Sun coincided with the first reliable spring rains. Pyramids like those at Edna feature special observation platforms where priests tracked these transitions, signaling farmers to sow seeds when Venus reached a specific altitude. The most astonishing proof of this astronomical mastery lies in Uxmal's lesser-known structure 18. Beneath its weathered surface, archaeologists found a hidden chamber containing a mural of Venus's entire cycle, painted in vibrant blues and reds. Each phase is marked not with abstract symbols, but with tiny holes where priests inserted pegs to track its progress, a Stone Age planetarium updated in real time. Nearby, a bench carved with Venus glyphs still bears the indented handprints of astronomers who sat here for generations, recording data that would outlive their civilization. What's truly humbling is realizing these alignments weren't static. As Earth's axial precession gradually shifted Venus's path over centuries, the Maya didn't just notice, they adjusted. At Uxmal, later additions to the governor's palace subtly changed its angles to compensate, proving their astronomy wasn't memorized tradition but living science. Today, when Venus aligns with Uxmal's ruins, modern visitors report something eerie. The limestone seems to absorb its light, glowing faintly in pre-dawn darkness. Whether optical illusion or some undiscovered property of the ancient mortar, the effect feels like a whisper across time, a reminder that for the Maya, the stars weren't distant points of light, but active players in the human drama, their movements etched into stone and memory alike. Rising from the flat plains of Campeche, Edna's Pyramid of the 5 Floors defies gravity with an optical illusion so striking, early Spanish explorers swore it could levitate. The secret lies in its central staircase, wider at the base than the summit and flanked by towering balustrades that angle inward as they climb. When dawn light hits just right, the entire structure appears to lift off the earth like a stone bird spreading its wings. But this architectural sleight of hand wasn't just for show. Every curve of those staircases served a dual purpose, channeling rainwater downward into a vast network of reservoirs and canals that transformed Edna from a jungle outpost into a hydraulic masterpiece. Beneath the pyramid's soaring facade, archaeologists uncovered a labyrinth of cisterns and filtration tanks so advanced they rival Roman engineering. During torrential rainy seasons, the staircase became a liquid highway, funneling water through precisely carved grooves into underground choltons, bell-shaped storage chambers lined with waterproof stucco. Satellite imaging reveals these tunnels stretch for miles, connecting to raised agricultural fields where the Maya grew maize in perfectly irrigated grids. The pyramid didn't just store water, it sanctified it. Ceramic vessels found at its base contained traces of copal and jade dust, evidence that priests blessed this life-giving resource before redistributing it through the city. The illusion of flight took on spiritual significance during key ceremonies. glyphs describe an annual ritual called the Descent of the Celestial Bird, where costumed dancers reenacted the pyramid's mythic origin story. Wearing feathered wings and mirrored headdresses, they'd descend the staircase at noon, their reflections fragmenting across the polished limestone to create the illusion of multiplied beings. At the climax, priests poured dyed water down the steps, transforming the pyramid into a shimmering cascade of blue, a symbolic reenactment of the god Itzamna bringing rain from the heavens. Modern engineers replicating Edsna's design made a startling discovery: the staircase's unique acoustics. A hand clap at the base produces a sharp echo that precisely matches the frequency of a thunderclap around 50 Hz. Combined with the pyramid's strategic placement atop natural limestone cavities, the entire structure may have functioned as a giant resonance chamber, amplifying storm sounds during dry seasons to psychologically induce rain anticipation. The Maya didn't just build for aesthetics or utility. They engineered multisensory experiences where architecture, nature, and belief intertwined. What lingers most isn't just the pyramid's physical grandeur, but its conceptual daring. While other cultures built staircases for ascent, Edsna's architects designed theirs for descent both of water and spirit. The flying effect wasn't merely visual poetry, it embodied their worldview. Just as water cycled between earth and sky, so too did human souls journey between realms, and perhaps that's the pyramid's ultimate revelation. That true innovation isn't about defying nature's laws, but harmonizing with them so completely that even stone seems to take flight. Deep within the narrow corridors of Rio Azul's pyramid tombs, archaeologists scraped residue from a 2,000-year-old vessel and found something unexpected. Not traces of blood or incense, but theobromine, the chemical fingerprint of chocolate. This wasn't just a snack left behind. It was proof that cacao flowed through Mayan rituals like liquid gold, consumed in sacred spaces where rulers communed with gods. The vessel's hieroglyphs told the story. This is his cocoa, etched beside the name of a buried noble, ensuring his afterlife would be sweetened with the same luxury that defined his earthly power. Cacao held a status unimaginable today, part sacrament, part currency, part political tool. Beans were so valuable, counterfeiters hollowed them out and filled them with clay to scam traders. Spanish records describe Mayan markets where a single bean could buy a ripe avocado, while 100 might purchase a turkey. But in pyramids, cacao took on darker significance. At Calakmul, a throne room stash contained over 24 vessels stained with cacao residue, each placed precisely where ambassadors from rival city-states would see them, a not-so-subtle display of wealth and influence. The preparation of ritual chocolate was an art form. Murals at Bonampak show nobles frothing cacao into a thick foam using intricately carved molinillos, pouring it between vessels to create cascades that mimicked sacred waterfalls. Chemical analysis of pyramid vessels reveals surprising additives: chili for heat, vanilla for sweetness, even the occasional bloodletting from royal donors. The most elite blends incorporated hallucinogenic mushrooms or morning glory seeds, turning chocolate into a shamanic brew consumed before vision quests atop temple summits. But why chocolate in pyramids? The answer lies in Mayan cosmology. Cacao trees grew in the underworld according to their creation myth, making the drink a literal taste of the divine. Tomb offerings often included ceramic cacao pods, symbolizing rebirth, the hard shell cracking to reveal new life, much like the pyramid stone exterior concealed spiritual treasures. At Palenque, King Pakal's tomb contained 9 chocolate vessels, arranged to mirror the 9 levels of Xibalba. The message was clear: rulers didn't just consume chocolate, they carried its power into the afterlife as diplomatic currency for the gods. Modern recreations of these recipes tell us even more. When scientists brewed chocolate using residue from a capon vessel, they discovered the mixture contained 10 times more theobromine than modern dark chocolate, a near psychoactive dose that would have induced euphoria during ceremonies. Combined with the pyramid's acoustics amplifying ritual chants and the visual spectacle of bloodletting, these chocolate rituals created multisensory overload, transporting participants into altered states where the boundaries between human and divine dissolved. Perhaps the most poignant discovery came from Kolha, where a modest pyramid yielded a child's burial with a tiny chocolate pot clutched in skeletal hands. Glyphs identified the boy as a scribe's apprentice, buried with the tools of his unfinished trade and one luxury item to sweeten his journey. In that small vessel, we see chocolate's true role, not just a status symbol, but a bridge between worlds, gifted as tenderly to a commoner's child as to kings. And that might be the ultimate revelation, that for all its cosmic significance, chocolate's magic lay in its ability to comfort, whether offered to gods in towering temples or placed gently in a grave no wider than a doorway. Among the most startling discoveries inside Mayan pyramids are peculiar ceramic vessels with bulbous bases and elongated spouts, tools for a ritual so intense it redefined our understanding of sacred communion. These weren't ordinary containers, they were enema syringes designed to administer hallucinogenic brews directly into the body for visions so powerful they could collapse the boundary between mortal and divine. Murals at San Bartolo and Decode depict nobles reclining on pyramid summits, these vessels pressed to their bodies as attendants assisted in ceremonies that turned the human body into a living conduit for the spirit world. The brews themselves were pharmacological masterpieces. Residue analysis reveals mixtures of fermented balshay honey, powdered morning glory seeds, and the bark of the chakmal tree, a concoction potent enough to induce trances within seconds when absorbed this way. Why such an extreme delivery method? The Maya believed the intestines housed a second mind, a visceral consciousness closer to the underworld than the brain. By bypassing digestion, the substances hit faster and harder, catapulting participants into altered states where they could navigate Xibalba's 9 layers or receive prophecies from ancestor spirits. The vessel's designs reveal chilling precision. Some spouts curve like serpents, mirroring the hallucinogenic visions of descending deities. Others feature built-in filters to strain plant matter, proving this wasn't some improvised ritual but a refined science. At Yaxchilan, a recovered syringe bears glyphs labeling it as the obsidian mirror of the inner eye, suggesting these tools were seen as portals to self-revelation. Even the positioning-mattered enema rituals were performed atop pyramids during Venus risings, aligning chemical transcendence with celestial events. What unsettles modern researchers isn't just the practice, but its democratization. While bloodletting was reserved for elites, enema paraphernalia appears in tombs of merchants and artisans too. A burial at Capon held a middle-aged woman with 6 syringes, her bones showing no signs of royal status. Perhaps this was the Maya's great spiritual equalizer, a communion where anyone, given enough courage, could stare into the abyss and return with wisdom. The most haunting evidence comes from Palenque's Temple of the Foliated Cross. Beneath its floor, archaeologists found a cache of 20 enema vessels arranged in a perfect circle, each containing traces of different psychedelics. This wasn't random storage, it was a ritual pharmacy with brews tailored for specific visions. One vessel's residue matched paintings on the temple walls depicting the maize god's rebirth. The message is clear. For the Maya, enlightenment wasn't just sought through prayer or sacrifice, but through a visceral, almost surgical rewriting of perception itself. Today, these artifacts force us to reconsider what sacred truly meant to them. While we might recoil at the method, its intent mirrors modern seekers swallowing ayahuasca or fasting for visions. The Maya simply took a more direct route, and perhaps that's the ultimate provocation, that their greatest spiritual technology wasn't carved in stone, but designed to disappear inside the body, turning pyramids into launch pads for journeys no sober mind could fathom. High atop the pyramids of Palenque and Calakmul, sunlight didn't just glint off stone, it flashed like celestial Morse code, thanks to sheets of pyrite mosaic painstakingly fitted into temple walls. These weren't mere decorations, they were portals. The Maya polished iron pyrite fools gold to a mirror finish, creating reflective surfaces so precise they could capture the silhouettes of passing clouds or the first glimpse of Venus rising. At night, torchlight transformed these facades into shimmering grids, making the pyramids appear as though they were woven from captured starlight. But the true purpose was far more profound. These mirrors weren't for admiring one's reflection. They were telescopes turned inward, tools for scrying into the spirit world. Priests used these pyrite mirrors in rituals described in the Dresden Codex, holding them to catch smoke from bloodletting ceremonies or the first rays of dawn. The distorted reflections were interpreted as messages from the gods. A flicker might signal impending drought, while a clear image could promise abundant harvest. At Chichen Itza, archaeologists found a shattered mirror buried beneath El Castillo's stairway, its fragments arranged to point toward the summer solstice sunrise. The Maya believed these reflective surfaces could trap souls or divine energy. Breaking them may have been a way to release that power during critical moments. What's astonishing is how far these mirrors traveled. Excavations in Teotihuacan, over 800 miles from the Maya heartland, unearthed pyrite mosaics with distinctive Mayan craftsmanship, likely looted during wars or traded as diplomatic gifts. One particularly chilling discovery in Tikal's Temple of the Masks revealed a mirror placed opposite a royal skeleton skull, positioned so the deceased would see eternally into the other world. Even more telling are the so-called mirror-bearer titles found in glyphs, denoting elite scribes or astronomers who interpreted celestial patterns through these polished stones. Modern experiments with reconstructed pyrite mirrors reveal their unsettling properties. When angled toward the sun during equinoxes, they project jagged light patterns that eerily resemble the Maya's carved vision serpents, those undulating creatures depicted channeling messages from ancestors. Combine this with hallucinogenic rituals, and it's easy to imagine priests genuinely perceiving divine communication in the reflections. The mirror's convex surfaces would have warped images slightly, turning ordinary phenomena into mystical visions. A passing bird might morph into a god's avatar, or ripples in a pond become underworld gateways. The ultimate testament to their significance lies in their destruction. Spanish conquistadors documented smashing pyrite mirrors as works of the devil, but earlier evidence shows the Maya themselves ritually shattered them when cities fell, perhaps to prevent sacred technology from falling into enemy hands. Today, only a handful survive intact, like the famous mosaic from Nebaj, now in the British Museum, its surface still capable of throwing light after 12 centuries. These fragments whisper a tantalizing truth. For the Maya, the line between reality and reflection wasn't just blurred, it was a doorway, and their pyramids were the hinges. At Yaxchilan, where the Usumacinta River carves through the jungle like a serpent, structure 33 holds a secret in its weathered stones, a doorway that doesn't just face west but swallows the setting sun whole. Twice a year, during the spring and fall equinoxes, the dying light aligns perfectly with this threshold, transforming the pyramid's entrance into a blazing portal. To the Maya, this wasn't mere celestial choreography. It was Xibalba's mouth opening wide, an invitation to the underworld where heroes battled gods and shadows held dominion. The Popol Vuh, the sacred Mayan text, paints Xibalba as no ordinary hell. It's a labyrinth of sentient rivers, houses filled with swarming blades, and courts where death gods test souls with impossible trials. Structure 33 brings these myths to chilling life. Its lintel carvings depict a ruler known as Bird Jaguar IV standing at this very doorway, clad in jade beads and obsidian mirrors, 1 foot raised as if mid-step between worlds. Behind him, the twisted forms of Xibalba's lords leer from the stone. The pus master who bloats bodies with disease, the scab stripper who peels flesh like bark, their grotesque visages warning of what lies beyond. But this portal wasn't just symbolic. Acoustic tests reveal something unsettling. When wind funnels through the doorway at sunset, it produces a low-frequency hum matching the Mayan death whistle's tone, a sound known to induce unease in human listeners. Archaeologists found 9 of these whistles buried beneath the threshold, their mouths aligned to amplify the natural phenomenon. Combine this with the pyramid's unique geology. The local limestone contains iron deposits that subtly magnetize the passage, and you have a multisensory illusion so potent anyone standing here at twilight might swear the stones themselves were breathing. The most haunting evidence lies beneath the doorway. In 2018, ground-penetrating radar detected a narrow shaft descending 20 meters into the pyramid's heart, ending in a waterlogged chamber. Divers retrieved artifacts that blur the line between ritual and reality. Ceramic bowls stained with midnight blue pigment, the color of Xibalba's rivers, stingray spines still sharp enough to draw blood, and most unnerving, a life-sized jade mask depicting the underworld god Hunhao, its eye sockets hollowed to hold human teeth. Why go to such lengths? For the Maya, thresholds were sacred. Birth, death, even the daily journey of the sun, all required passage through liminal spaces. Structure 33 didn't just represent Xibalba, it was a training ground for the soul. Initiates likely performed rituals here, fasting until visions came, learning to navigate the afterlife's terrors before their true descent. The doorway's alignment wasn't calendar math, it was cosmic timing, ensuring the veil thinned when courage was most needed. Today, when the equinox sun sinks into that stone frame, modern visitors report something inexplicable. The temperature drops abruptly, though no shadow falls. Scientists blame underground air currents. The Maya would have known better. Some doors aren't meant to stay closed, and some stories carved in limestone and whispered by wind refuse to end. Deep in the ruins of Capon, where the jungle's whispers grow thickest after sunset, stands a pyramid unlike any other, its facade carved with wings. This is the Bat Palace, a monument to the Maya's most terrifying nocturnal deity, Camazotz, the bat god whose very name meant death bat in their tongue. While other pyramids reached for the sun, this one embraced the darkness, its staircases leading not to celestial glory, but to rituals so chilling they blurred the line between worship and nightmare. The Bat Palace's design leaves no doubt about its patron. Stone reliefs depict Camazotz in horrifying detail, gaping mouth bristling with fangs, wings spread like a funeral shroud, claws curled around human hearts. But these weren't just decorations, they were warnings. The Popol Vuh describes Camazotz as a resident of Xibalba's House of Bats, where he decapitated wayward souls with a single snap of his jaws. At Capon, archaeologists found evidence these myths were more than stories. The pyramid's summit holds a circular platform with grooves channeling liquids, likely blood, down into hidden cisterns, while ceramic incense burners shaped like bat skulls still bear traces of hallucinogenic resins. What makes this pyramid truly unique is its alignment. While most Mayan structures track solar or Venusian cycles, the Bat Palace's central staircase points toward the patch of sky where the Pleiades set just before dawn, a celestial event marking the brief window when both bats and stars shared the darkness. During these nights, priests would ascend the pyramid steps wearing bat-hide cloaks and masks with movable jaws, their chants timed to the colony's screeching exodus from nearby caves. Glyphs describe ceremonies where captives were forced to endure these sounds for hours before dawn, their terror believed to nourish Camazotz's spirit. The most chilling discovery came from beneath the palace floor. In 2015, archaeologists uncovered a cache of obsidian blades etched with batwing patterns, each stained with hemoglobin from both human and bat sources. Nearby, a stone altar bore microscopic wear marks suggesting repeated decapitation rituals precisely mirroring the Popol Vuh's tales of Camazotz's victims. But here's the twist. Dental analysis of skulls found at the site revealed many belonged to warriors from rival cities, suggesting the Bat Palace wasn't just a place of fear but of psychological warfare. Imagine the message sent when enemy soldiers vanished at night, only for their likenesses to appear months later on carved stelae, their heads replaced with bat skulls. Yet the Bat Palace also held a paradoxical role in Mayan life. Bats weren't just killers, they were pollinators. Murals in lesser-known chambers show camezots with flowers sprouting from his wings, a nod to the vital role bats played in spreading ceiba and cacao seeds. This duality, destroyer and life-giver, captures the Mayas' nuanced worldview. Death wasn't an end, but a transformation, and even their most fearsome gods held gifts in their claws. Today, when dusk falls over Capon, the Bat Palace's acoustics still work their old magic. A hand clap at its base produces an echo that flutters like beating wings, a sonic relic of rituals lost to time. And perhaps that's the true lesson of this shadowed pyramid, that the Maya understood darkness not as something to conquer, but to converse with, their stones still whispering secrets to those willing to listen in the quiet hours between sunset and stars. What if I told you the iconic gray ruins of Mayan pyramids were never meant to be seen? Originally, these structures blazed in radiant white, their polished limestone facades gleaming like beacons across the jungle canopy. The transformation from luminous wonder to crumbling relic wasn't gradual decay, it was structural betrayal, where the very materials meant to glorify these monuments became their undoing. The secret lies in the Maya's construction genius and its fatal flaw. Workers quarried high-quality limestone from nearby deposits, burning it in kilns to create quicklime mortar. This adhesive was revolutionary, bonding stones tighter than modern concrete in some cases, but the outer veneer, that was a different story. Thin slabs of gleaming white limestone, some barely thicker than your hand, were fastened to the rough rubble cores with minimal mortar, creating the illusion of solid perfection. From afar, the effect was dazzling. Sunlight bouncing off these facades could be seen for miles, especially when painted with red ochre or Maya blue accents. Spanish conquistadors wrote of cities that seemed to float above the trees, their pyramids shining like misplaced glaciers in the tropical heat. Time exposed the deception. Without the Maya's meticulous maintenance, an ongoing ritual where priests replastered surfaces every 52 years to match the sacred calendar cycle, the veneers began their slow surrender. Tropical storms pried at the thin slabs with needle-like rain. Tree roots, drawn to the moisture trapped behind the facades, slithered into gaps and levered stones apart. Even the limestone's chemistry worked against it. As centuries passed, the porous stone absorbed organic acids from jungle vegetation, dissolving its crystalline structure from within. The result, what once appeared solid, revealed its truth. Pyramids were essentially elegant masks over packed rubble and loose fill. The most dramatic collapses followed predictable patterns. Starting near the base where humidity pooled, the veneer would bulge outward before shearing off in great curved sheets, a phenomenon called spalling. Archaeologists at Decode found entire terraces buried under their own facades, the fallen slabs preserving ghostly impressions of the artwork they once shielded. At Palenque, the Temple of the Inscriptions lost its upper veneer in a single catastrophic slide during an 18th century earthquake, exposing the rough fill beneath like an autopsy incision. But here's the twist, this structural vulnerability preserved more than it destroyed. Those crumbling veneers sealed off entire sections of pyramids like time capsules. At Calakmul, workers removing a collapsed facade in 2018 uncovered a previously hidden stucco frieze depicting a royal bloodletting ceremony, its colors intact after 12 centuries in darkness. Similarly, the famous painted pyramid at Ekbalam was only discovered when hurricane winds tore away its outer skin, revealing intricate murals of winged warriors and jaguar deities. The contrast between original intent and modern reality couldn't be starker. Where visitors today see weathered gray ruins, the Maya experienced vibrating white canvases for celestial theater. During equinoxes, shadow serpents didn't crawl down rough-hewn steps, they slid across flawless surfaces calibrated to millimeter precision. Bloodletting rituals at summit altars would have sent crimson rivulets streaking down those immaculate walls, a visual shock the eroded stones can no longer deliver. Yet there's haunting beauty in this decay. The exposed cores tell their own story of recycled stones from earlier temples, of rushed repairs during droughts, even of workers' handprints fossilized in mortar. These imperfections reveal something the perfect facades concealed, that the pyramids weren't born divine, but made so through generations of human toil and vision. The veneers may be gone, but their absence speaks volumes about ambition, fragility, and the relentless honesty of time. Deep in the dense jungles of northern Guatemala, where the roots of ancient ceiba trees twist through forgotten ruins, archaeologists uncovered a burial chamber that would rewrite our understanding of Mayan artistry, the painted tomb of Rio Azul. Hidden beneath a modest pyramid, this small rectangular room blazed with color when first revealed, its walls alive with swirling murals in turquoise, scarlet, and most astonishingly, an otherworldly blue so vibrant it seemed to glow in the torchlight. Unlike the weathered stones outside, these pigments had survived centuries of humidity unscathed, preserving scenes of the underworld where a nobleman, likely a ruler, danced alongside gods through fields of starry flowers. The key to this chromatic miracle lies in the infamous Maya blue, a pigment so chemically stable it resists acids, solvents, and even modern bleaching agents. For decades, scientists struggled to crack its recipe. Traditional azure dyes from the ancient world, like Egyptian frit or Chinese han purple, fade when exposed to moisture or sunlight. But Maya blue defies all logic. When researchers analyzed samples from Rio Azul using X-ray diffraction, they detected something extraordinary, a molecular marriage between indigo dye and a rare clay called palagoscite, fused through a ritualistic heating process that bound the organic and inorganic components at the atomic level. The Maya didn't just mix these substances, they alchemized them, creating a color that outlasted empires. How this knowledge was achieved remains one of archaeology's great puzzles. The process likely involved steeping palagoscite in indigo-infused water, then baking the slurry at precise temperatures around 150 degrees Celsius, a technique requiring observational brilliance as the Maya had no thermometers. Even more remarkable, the indigo didn't come from local flora. Chemical signatures point to the Guatemalan highlands over 200 miles away, suggesting Rio Azul's artists participated in vast trade networks just to secure their palette. The tomb's murals reveal why such effort was expended. Each scene follows the deceased's journey through Xibalba, the Mayan underworld, with blue serving as far more than decoration. In one chilling section, the nobleman's face is painted entirely in Maya blue as he presents a jade mask to the death gods, a symbolic transformation where the pigment's immortality becomes his own. Nearby, cerulean swirls depict the watery divide between worlds, their undulating patterns mirroring the molecular structure of palagoscite itself. This wasn't arbitrary. The Maya believed certain materials held innate power, and by painting their dead with a color that never faded, they granted them eternal passage through the afterlife. But the real revelation came when conservators noticed something peculiar. While most pigments fade when cleaned, Maya blue grows more intense under gentle moisture, a property that explains its survival in Rio Azul's damp tomb. Modern tests show the palagoscite's tubular nanocrystals act like microscopic prisms, refracting light to amplify the indigo's hue when wet. The Maya may have known this intuitively, applying the pigment during humid rituals to enhance its luminosity. Imagine the tomb's unveiling centuries ago, mourners entering a chamber where the walls seemed to breathe color, the blue deepening as their torches raised the humidity, transforming grief into awe. Today, Maya blue's legacy extends beyond archaeology. Material scientists now study its nanostructure for applications in everything from radiation-resistant spacecraft coatings to self-cleaning fabrics. Yet for all our technological advances, no one has fully replicated the original process. The missing ingredient might not be chemical but spiritual. Contemporary Maya elders speak of saklam, a ceremonial activation where chanting and copal smoke awaken the pigment soul. Perhaps that's why, when you stand before Rio Azul's murals, their blues still singing after 12 centuries, you don't just see a color. You witness a conversation between Earth and eternity, painted in a language we're only beginning to decipher. For centuries, the jungle kept its secrets well. Cities like Calakmul, once a superpower rivaling Decode, vanished so completely beneath layers of vines and ceiba roots that even local Maya descendants forgot their exact locations. Spanish conquistadors rode past these ruins without realizing the hills they admired were pyramids in disguise, their outlines blurred by time and relentless greenery. It took a revolution in modern technology to rip away the green veil. LiDAR, a laser scanning system mounted on aircraft that revealed the truth by stripping away vegetation digitally. When researchers first saw the results from Calakmul's survey in 2006, the scans didn't just show a pyramid or two, they unveiled a sprawling metropolis with over 6,000 structures, including a pyramid taller than Niagara Falls. The jungle floor, it turned out, wasn't empty. It was a graveyard of lost worlds. What LiDAR exposed was humbling. At sites like El Mirador, scans showed entire causeway networks connecting cities, proving the Maya-engineered landscapes on a continental scale. Hidden reservoirs and terraces emerged from the data, rewriting our understanding of how they sustained millions in what we'd assumed was untamed wilderness. Most startling were the ghost pyramids, mounds dismissed as natural features that LiDAR revealed as deliberately shaped monuments, their outlines too precise for coincidence. One such structure in the Patane Basin, dubbed Structure 12, turned out to be the third largest pyramid ever built by the Maya, yet it had escaped notice until lasers exposed its symmetrical base beneath 20 feet of soil. But here's the chilling part: we've barely scratched the surface. Current LiDAR coverage spans less than 10% of the Maya world, leaving vast regions unexplored. In Belize's uncharted Vega Plateau, ground teams following LiDAR hits recently stumbled upon a ceremonial complex with stelae depicting unknown kings, proof that the political map of the Maya civilization is still being redrawn. Even at well-known sites like Tikal, scans detected anomalies suggesting whole sections of the city remain buried, including what might be a royal necropolis beneath the Grand Plaza. The technology's precision is so acute it can spot individual looters' trenches from decades past, hinting at treasures already lost to black markets. The real mystery isn't just what we've found, it's what the jungle still guards. LiDAR can't penetrate solid limestone, leaving pyramid interiors and sealed chambers as blind spots. At Calakmul, scans showed a labyrinth of undiscovered tunnels snaking beneath the main plaza, their entrances deliberately sealed by the Maya themselves. Similar voids lurk under Palenk's Temple of the Inscriptions, where acoustic probes detected echoing chambers too deep for current excavations. Could these hold royal archives like the fabled bark paper books the Spanish burned? Or ritual objects too sacred to leave exposed? The most tantalizing clue comes from a LiDAR glitch. During a 2019 survey in Guatemala's Sierra del Lacandon, lasers bounced back from a pyramid cluster with odd intensity, suggesting metal deposits. Ground inspections revealed traces of mercury deep in the soil, an element the Maya associated with sacred caves and mirrors to the underworld. Nearby, a previously unknown ball quartz markers were studded with hematite, a mineral that aligns with magnetic north. This wasn't random, it was geomancy, the art of shaping landscapes to harness cosmic forces. If the Maya engineered their cities to interact with Earth's magnetism, what other secrets might their alignments hold? What keeps archaeologists awake isn't just the scale of these discoveries, but their urgency. Climate change accelerates jungle decay, with increased storms and rising humidity destabilizing buried structures. Looting remains a constant threat. One Calakmul pyramid had its entire facade looted in the 1980s, its carvings now scattered in private collections. Yet for all the risks, the promise of discovery electrifies researchers. With every lie de pass, another layer of the Maya's genius emerges from the green darkness, reminding us that history isn't static. It's a living thing, still whispering from beneath the roots, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The greatest lesson might be this: the Maya didn't truly vanish. They're still here, their stories etched not just in stone, but in the very contours of the land itself. And with every technological leap, we're granted another fleeting glimpse into their world, not as ruins, but as they were meant to be seen. Vibrant, immense, and alive with mysteries we've only begun to unravel. From towering cosmic calculators to blood-stained altars, the Mayan pyramids stand as monuments to a civilization that blurred the line between science and sorcery. Their architects didn't just build, they encoded entire worldviews in limestone. From Danta's jungle-shrouded immensity to Palink's whispering throne rooms where kings communed with jaguar spirits. These structures pulse with mysteries that still defy explanation. Pyramids within pyramids, chambers humming with sacred frequencies, staircases that count the stars. Consider the sheer breadth of their genius. They turned buildings into calendars with El Castillo's shadow serpents, engineered cities as mirrors of constellations, and even crafted paints so enduring they outlasted empires. Their priests tracked planetary cycles with precision we'd struggle to match today, while their laborers moved mountains of stone without wheels or metal. Yet for all their brilliance, darker truths linger: sacrificial cenotes where blue-painted children met the gods, ball courts where victory meant survival, and the haunting remains of unfinished pyramids abandoned as droughts choked their world. What's most astonishing isn't just what we've uncovered, but what remains hidden. LiDAR reveals lost cities beneath the jungle, yet sealed chambers still guard untold secrets. The Maya left us puzzles in acoustics, pigments, and celestial alignments, clues suggesting we've only scratched the surface of their understanding. If these stories resonated with you, imagine standing in their shadow. Walk the same steps where astronomers charted Venus, touch the stones that still sing like birds, or witness equinoxes that transform ancient geometry into living art. Then tell us which fact left you breathless. Was it the dwarf king's mythical rise at Uxmal, the mathematical sorcery of their calendars, or perhaps the enigma of mirrors that opened doorways to other worlds? The pyramids don't just belong to history, they're invitations to wonder, to explore, and to remember that civilizations may fade, but their questions endure. And somewhere in those silent corridors between the cracks of weathered stone, the Maya still whisper, waiting for us to listen.